Hi everyone, it's Kate. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another episode of Just a Tip Tuesday, this series where I am showing you how to do all kinds of fun things with your stickers, starting with some printable tips. In episode 1, we talked about just how to print and cut your stickers. In episode 2, we talked about how to crop them to get only the stickers that you want on the page. And today we're going to talk about making script stickers. So I'm going to show you how to do this in Silhouette Studio. I'm not going to show you Cricut Design Space today. If that is something that you guys would like, let me know and I can make that separately. But in the interest of keeping this tutorial a little bit shorter than the last two, we're just going to do Silhouette today. There are Frenchies snoring right behind me, so if you can hear that, you're welcome. Let's jump in. It is way easier than you think it is to make scripts in Silhouette Studio. This is one of the most asked questions I get about Silhouette. And it looks scary and it feels scary the first time you do it, but it is really not. And I'm going to show you how. So we are going to start just with our regular canvas, and I'm just going to move this off to the side because we're not going to make a sticker out of that, although we definitely could. Here are the tools that you are going to need in Silhouette Studio to do this. You will need this text tool over here. You will need this tool here called the offset panel. We'll click on that in a bit. We may need the modify panel, depending on the script. And then we will also probably need at some point one of these three or multiples of them. Don't worry, I'm going to show you everything. Let me zoom in a little bit so we can see better. And the first thing that we're going to do is just click this text button here. So we're going to click it and then click on the screen and then we can type anything. So I'm going to type, what will our first script be? Let's do today script. I probably want it all in the same case. So what Silhouette does is when you first type in something with the text tool, it's going to give it to you as an outline. There may be a setting now where you can change that. I'm not sure, but that's how it's set up as the default. So what we're going to do first, oh, I didn't mention we will need the color panel and the line panel as well, the fill and the lines. So we're going to open our fill panel. I'm going to open the line panel as well. I'm just going to pop it down here for now. So what I want to do is fill this. We're just going to do black text today. So I'm going to fill it with black. It does still have the red outline. You can see that up here, and you can also see it if you come to this panel here. So I am just going to remove that red outline. Now, when you're doing script stickers, you may also want to play around with the spacing between the letters, between the words, etc., just to make an easier kiss cut line with the offset tool. I'll show you that in a moment. If you double click on this and then select it, you can, if you open this text panel here, you can change some of those things. You've got line spacing and character spacing over here. So if you were doing like to go and you didn't want quite as much space between the words, you could just select it and then click over here and just bring everything a little bit closer together. It does tend to make things a little easier when you're creating your kiss cut. For now, I'm just gonna do the today. I'm gonna put this back to 100 because this is not the font that I want to use, and we're gonna find a different font in here, one that is kind of cute and that we would actually want to put in our planner. All right, I like this one. I am going to bring the character spacing down a little bit like that. So that's at 90. If you're going to do this with your scripts and you want to have them match in the future, just like copy one of these and pull it off to the side so that when you come back to it, you can see, okay, this is how I had it set up. But for now, let's just select that. And then we're going to come in here to the offset panel. Now I'm going to pull this down a little bit, and all you have to do to start is click offset. Now that's added a red cut line around each letter. It's not all connected. That's okay. I set mine at 0.04, so that's fine. I want it to curve around, not come up in a point like this. So that's great. And I'm going to click apply. So now what we have in here is the text. We can pull that down here if we want. And then we have a few different files. Those two letters were close together, so it has popped them in together, but we've got 4 different sets of letters. That is okay. I'm just going to click back a few times, which of course is going to do this in Silhouette. One more. There we go. Okay, so what we want to do now is work on connecting these bits here. And if you have an upgraded version of Silhouette and you have the layers panel, this will be very easy to do in here because you can move your text to a different layer and then lock it so that it's not in your way. And then if you're selecting things, you're only selecting your cut lines. If you don't have the layers panel, because you have like the free Silhouette, that's totally fine. You can either move it out of the way and then rearrange it afterwards, center it afterwards, or you can just leave it there and work around it. But I am going to lock it because I do have that option. So now what I'm going to do is zoom right in so I can see what I am doing. And I'm going to come over here to the rounded rectangle. Make sure I'm clicked on the layer that I want to work on. And then what I'm going to do is just start drawing some rectangles to connect these 2 letters. So it doesn't have to be super precise as long as the shapes meet and you get kind of the shape you want in the middle. This is jumping around on me. I'm going to arrow over. All right, and then I'm going to just, I'm going to option click. I'm on a Mac. I'm not sure what the shortcut is for that on PC. And I'm going to bring that up and then maybe just bring it down again a little bit to connect those 2. And then I'm just going to do the same thing. So I am going to add one here and down here because that is kind of a sharp angle there that we don't really need. And then just keep doing the same thing. You're just trying to avoid, you want to connect it at both ends as well as avoid having like really, really deep angles. Like that is a little bit too deep for me. This one here you could fill in. I don't think we need to, but we'll come back to it. And I don't want to fill this in all the way either. I just want to fill it in to about here just so that it's not coming right down. So we've got connecting shapes now in all of the areas that we think we want them. We may want others. We'll come back to it afterwards. But now we're going to select the whole thing and we're going to come over here to the modify panel and we're going to click weld. And that is going to connect all of those shapes together. So what you have now is one cut line that you could cut with, but what it's going to do is cut out these bits as well because it'll cut anywhere that there's a red line, right? So what we want to do now is right click this. So select it and then right click and choose release compound path. And what that does is it releases all of these individual things so that now they're all their own cut lines. And if you drag that one out, you can delete it and you can drag them all out. What I like to do, because sometimes there are very small little bits that you don't necessarily see, especially if you're doing like something intricate, I select the whole thing. I deselect the cut line that I know I want to keep, and then I delete the rest of the inside bits. And now what you have is a script sticker, essentially. So this will be the white outline on the sticker, or if you were printing on yellow, it would be a yellow outline, right? Because it's just gonna cut around whatever paper. You don't have to fill this. You can if you want a different color. Say you want blackout text. You can change the fill on your script to white and then select this and fill it with black. And then you can see that it's on that. Now, if I were printing this, I would probably fill this in more, and actually I might fill it in more anyway, and down here as well, just so that it's a little bit more uniform. And I would probably make sure that these are a little bit more even along the top, which is what I would do. I make my scripts in Illustrator, and that's what I do in there, but I just wanted to show you what that looks like. But I will show you now how you can then change that. So I'm going to lock this again so that I can't touch that. And now if I want to make these all a little bit more even, I'm just going to do the same thing again. I'm not going to actually try to measure it or anything, but I will bring them all up a little bit, and you can add to it. You can sort of take away from it, but it is easier to add to it. So let me just use my mouse for that one. And then this one, I think we will fill in too. And what you decide to do with them will depend on the font. It will depend on the word. Like some you may want to leave quite big gaps in there that it'll cut around, and some you may not. All right, and now I'm going to do the same thing I did by selecting it all and using the weld button. We do have new little bits here that we need to take away. So I will release the compound path by right-clicking, deselect your cut line, and there you go. Now, you could cut like this, it would be fine. If you're cutting on a mat, especially if you're cutting matless, it might not work all that well because matless doesn't love sharp angles like this, I have found. The other thing that you can do if you do want to modify these a little bit and make them a little curvier is you can double click on the line, and that's going to show you all of the different points that are in here. And then over here, what happens is it opens up this point editing tool, and what you see is some options here. So if you click simplify, it'll start changing the shape of this. So I don't know if you saw that. Let me back that up. You can see all of these points here. If you simplify, it'll remove as many points as it can. I don't always love this tool in Silhouette Studio because it does change the shape of it a little bit. Like if you watch this curve over the T, if I back up, it changes that a lot. So I don't love that, but it is one way to do it. The other way is to zoom into the parts that you want to change. I think I'm as zoomed in as I can get. And I'm just going to click on one, and I am going to delete that one. So what that did was it just took out the extra one that was there. And then what I can do here, I have a couple options here. So with this selected, it's just selecting this line here between the 2 points. Now I have extra options here. So I can click smooth, and it'll make it into less of a point and more of a curve, and then I can, oh, that's added a curve there as well. Nope. So I can do that. I can also do, let's bring that back to where it was. Click that. I can also say make curve, and that is basically doing the same thing as smooth was. I can tell it to make it flat, and then it'll make it a straight line, and I'm just hitting the undo button in between all of these to show you. But either one of those will work. I'm going to use the smooth button. I think it's doing the same thing as curve in this case, but it's just smoothed it out so that now there isn't a point there. And you can do the same thing with any of them that you want to. That one didn't do anything, but I think there's an extra point we don't really need in there. So then I'll select this one and say smooth, and that smoothed it out as well. So like I said, I do mine in Illustrator where it'll kind of do these automatically for me, which is nice, but you can do this with each of them, and it will definitely change the look just slightly. And hopefully you can see that what I'm doing is deleting the extra point between those two and then selecting that little segment and clicking smooth, and it's changing it from a full on point. So you have this one that's a point. I'm going to click this, I'm going to delete that one, and then I want to select this one and click smooth, and that's made it. We can also actually probably smooth that one, and that's made it into a curve. And that's all you have to do. Now, like I said, you don't have to do this. This is just something that will finesse your, hold on, finesse your script a little bit. So let's pretend we've done that all around. You can do it in any shape that you want. You can play around with it, whatever you want to do. I'm going to unlock this layer here so that I can select and group. And then I'm going to zoom out. And now all we have to do, well, that is a little bit big. That is bigger than a full box. So let's just make this about 1/2 inch or so. Now, if you want to create an entire sheet of these, you do the exact same thing that we did in the last video where we learned about the replicate tool. So I'm going to bring this over here. I am just going to start replicating that, and then when I get here, I'm going to put some space in between them, and then I'm going to select them all, and I'm going to come up here to our handy dandy spacing tool. We'll choose the space horizontal and we will click it. I would say that's probably, you'd probably want to leave a little bit more space in between them, but it would work like that too. But I would just take one out and space them out a little bit more. And then I am going to hit this replicate down button. So that's going to start adding them there. Let's leave it at that. So that's literally the entire process. I'm going to run through one more script with you from start to finish so that you can see the whole thing again, but it is just as simple as that. So we are going to start by clicking our font tool. We're going to click here, and this time let's do groceries. I am going to set my line color to nothing, and I'm going to come in here and set that to black. And then I'm going to open my script or text panel, and I am going to find a different script. Okay, let's do this one. Script fonts, like actual loopy script, often need to have the character spacing changed on them because they will space out kind of strangely. That's a Frenchie in the background. This one I think looks fine. What happens if you try to go too narrow is that you start to see the lines through them. And if you go too far the other way, you get spaces between them that you don't want. Some fonts will come like this by default, so then you really will want to pull that down again. But I think 100% is going to be fine for this. We can see the giant margins on this one. So before I add the offset, I am going to go ahead. I'm going to resize it slightly. Actually, we'll leave it big so that you can see. And then let's come over and add our offset. Now, because they're all touching, this is going to be in mostly one thing. We may have to weld that. We'll see what it does when we apply. Nope, it turned it into its own. So now we just want to fill in some of these gaps again. And I think for this one, we might use, well, let's see how it looks with the square. So I didn't move this one to a different layer. So when I select the whole thing, I'm going to deselect my text. And then I'm going to come over here to weld. And I think that that's mostly good, but there are a couple edits I want to make. So I'm going to pull, I'm just going to undo. And then I'm going to pull that one down a bit because I don't think it needs to be that high. And I'm going to add a little one here. And that might be okay. Let's try that. So select all, deselect that, click weld. I'm going to undo that one more time. You could fix this one with the point editor, but I'm just going to pull that over so that it doesn't have that angle there, and weld one more time. Okay, I think that that's good. Now I'm going to right click and release compound path. And now when I select it all, I'm going to deselect my cut line, but I'm also going to deselect my script so that it doesn't delete when I hit delete. And there you go. So you could cut your script just like this. The other thing that you can do, of course, is zoom in and edit some of these points. And then you would just do the same thing that you did with the other. I just right click, selected those, right clicked, or I just selected those and then hit Command G on a Mac, Control G on a PC. I can resize this. I do typically resize the script before I add the offset because the offset ratio does seem to change a little bit. Where it'll just look way bigger than you expected it to, or way smaller than you expected it to. But that's all you have to do. I resize that, and then I can start replicating it. And there you go, a whole sheet full of grocery scripts or any other scripts that you might like to do. That's it. That's as easy as it is to make scripts in Silhouette Studio. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments. And also let me know your list of scripts that you are going to go gung-ho making now that you know how. I will see you again in a couple weeks for another tip. In the meantime, feel free to check out the playlist of other videos in this series. And don't forget to come over and join us on Instagram and Facebook. I'll see you all again soon. Bye, friends.